This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, X Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk about bass fishing. And we got a good show today. Obviously, because I've been gone for the past 35 days and finally got back in studio yesterday. If you subscribe to the iTunes, I apologize for the notification that there are 7 new BTLs available. But you guys now have some listening material on your way to work, on the way to the lake, wherever you choose to enjoy the Bass Talk Live podcast platform. But really good show today. Matt Stefan. MLF Invitational. I don't know if it's still Tackle Warehouse MLF Invitational. Champion Matt Stefan got the job done, I think like 3 weeks ago in La Crosse on the Mississippi River. Total chaos. We're going to let him describe it all. And I was thinking, I was watching it, so I had a buddy call, and I'll bring him in to tell this. He's also joined by his wife, Sarah Stefan, because I think she could be an integral part. I would love to know what Sarah Stefan was going through, because I know the anxiety that I felt. And I was like, dude, Matt's wife has to be going nuts. What's up, guys? Thanks for jumping on BTL.
Good morning.
Good morning, Panger. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Thanks. So this has come full circle. So I got my glasses yesterday in the mail. And the last time, and I got the same pair. I lost them. These are behind a bed somewhere in La Crosse, Wisconsin. My other pair, I lost them the last time I was in La Crosse, Wisconsin for a media event. So I didn't have glasses for like almost a year. And then I ended up getting them yesterday. And then you win in La Crosse, Wisconsin, your first major tour win. So I feel like I had to wear the glasses. Is there not a connection there?
Are these them?
What sunglasses do you run? Do you have are you on a sunglass sponsor train?
I'm with Costa right now.
Okay.
I like your
BTLs.
glasses. They look nice.
Yeah,
You look chic.
You look so sharp. Like
Thank you.
You look like you came prepared. Your face looks really refreshed too. I don't know. You just look so good right now.
I was sharing before, not a sponsor plug at all, but I was sharing with Matt my moisturizer of choice. Just every morning, a little bit of Image Skincare Vital C Hydrating Anti-Aging Serum. I read some ingredients to Matt. You were very impressed that leaf juice was the number 3 ingredient.
Yeah. That sounds organic.
All right. How long has it been since you won?
What about a week?
No,
a week and a half.
Today's Tuesday. It was the first day of the tournament.
Than that.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. No.
It was like
12 days.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Almost 2 weeks.
I just stopped celebrating. It's been a long week of just telling good stories. A long week of reminiscing. Doing podcasts, making phone calls,
There's other fishing podcasts?
Well, I mean, there's a few, but nothing that compares to BTL.
I'm just giving you a hard time. How many of these have you been to, Sarah? I know. Are you a chiropractor or a doctor or a pediatrician, or you're something in that realm, aren't you?
I'm a chiropractor. Yes.
Okay. Chiropractor.
Yes.
Oh, can I ask you a question?
I mean,
if
sure.
I went and got a massage, but my back still hurts, does that mean I need to see a chiropractor? Because I just drove 6,000 miles sitting in my truck, and I was like, ooh, it's like tight back there. So I went to like the Asian Lucky Hand and got a 60 or a 90-minute massage. No, it was totally legit, but my back is still really tight. That's a chiropractor visit, right?
I mean, do you have a chiropractor you go to?
I used to. I have not been in like 2 years.
Okay, so find yourself a good chiropractor and go get adjusted, on a semi-regular basis. And then when you have those long trips, hopefully you can avoid
The lucky
the
hand.
yeah.
This is a serious question. What would you call a semi-regular basis? Because if you think of fishing, not even just for a day, but think of the rough water for 7 days in a row, the stress, the sitting in a car for 12 hours, followed by 7 days in a row, followed by the bad nutrition, followed by the drive home and the 3-foot waves, and then standing in a position with most of your weight on one foot for the majority of the day. I feel like chiropractors are drastically underutilized in the bass fishing world because everyone walks around and complains about how their back hurts. At least, I mean, and I'm in my 30s, and I know guys that are younger than me and my age who shouldn't be complaining about that stuff.
I would completely agree that chiropractic care is completely underutilized in the bass fishing world. We were just talking about this last night, because I was like, the rough water you guys run, the amount of time you're standing, the people, the guys and gals that are looking down at their forward-facing sonar.
Oh yeah, I didn't even throw live scope in there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why getting adjusted on a regular basis, and a regular basis is going to be different for everyone. I think I try to get Matt adjusted when he's home, like weekly.
At least.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't cost us anything to have him get adjusted. So I know there's financial constraints for some people, but every other week, every 3 weeks, I mean, if you're fishing on a regular basis, once a week or every other week and you're doing tournaments, I'd say minimally once a month. But if you're already dealing with a problem like you're dealing with, it's probably going to take more than
problem.
Just
it's just a little out of whack, I think. But I got to deal with my insurance, I think, where I got it where it was like $40 every time I went in. So I just tossed him a couple bills, went back, crack, pop, felt better immediately.
I've talked to Sarah about trying to travel with me and set up like a portable table at the launch ramp every day. And I think it would be a great idea. And I think somebody could make a good living doing that. The problem is you would have to be licensed in every state we went to. And that's not an easy thing to do.
So you could have done it at this past invitational that Matt won.
I would have wanted nothing to do with touching you guys.
It was so hot.
That's what I said. Yeah, nothing like wanting to adjust 200 fishermen after they've been on the water sweating and eating potted meat all day.
Or Buc-ee's, I mean, sounds like
you've never been to a Buc-ee's either?
No, I've never been to a Buc-ee's.
The Stefan family.
Wisconsin is getting one, but Matt's not a fan, so I think it's probably going to be
Matt is a fan. He just doesn't realize that he's a fan.
I think we've talked about it. It's so overrated. It's a great gas station, but for the amount of press it gets, it's way overrated. It's no Quick Trip.
The amount of press it gets is me and Miles Berghoff, who, whatever, is he doing okay there? I know he had a little leg issue.
Yeah, he had some pretty good.
Is he back in shape? Because he's up in Alaska now, guiding for the summer.
Yeah. Yeah, he calls it a flesh-eating bacteria is what he said it was. God. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it did look like something took a bite out of his calf. It was pretty disgusting. But yeah, he's on some sort of meds for it, and he's up in Alaska right now for, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, 3 weeks.
I talked to Katie yesterday. 3.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's out of service. He called me before he left, and he's like, Matt, I'm just want to let you know I'm gonna be gone for 3 weeks. It felt like we were breaking up for a little bit.
He was so sad.
It was sad.
Matt's like, I'm so sad. I'm not gonna get to talk to Miles.
Do you guys talk on a daily basis?
No, we're sounding boards for each other though a couple times a week.
I gotcha. Jay Lee says, Sarah, you need to come on the BPT tour. Now that you're on the BPT, said I'll pay the cheese to get adjusted. New business plan for y'all. What would that take to get a? Well, I mean, do you have to go through the whole spiel again to get a license in every state, or is it kind of like getting a fishing license?
No, it's different in every state. Some states are really easy. Wisconsin, you have to take a jurisprudence exam. You have to pass all your boards, which I did that years ago. So I'd have all that. It would just have to be going through the individual states' steps, and some are really easy, and some are, you got to show X, Y, and Z.
Isn't it though, like to maintain your license, you'd have to do so much continuing education credits every year. So you'd have to like if she had a license in California, she'd have to go to California.
No, you wouldn't have to, because most of the classes that I take, they're CE. No, they're CE accredited for 10, 15, 20 states.
Well, let's start working on this.
All right.
I think that would.
I want it.
Yeah.
That's 2 out of 80. We got two adjustments we can do.
I'm gonna make.
And now you're on the BPT.
Yeah.
All right. I want to. Let's get into this derby. I know you've probably hashed it, rehashed it, and everything, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted Sarah here. I started this by saying I watched it. My buddies called and said, "Do you see what's happening right now?" And I was driving, and I pulled over and I turned it on, and it was extended coverage of the Tackle Warehouse Invitational from La Crosse, Wisconsin. They had aerial shots, they had camera boat shots. You see a barge in the lock. We're going to reverse engineer this. We're going to start at the end, and then we'll work back and go through all the tournament details, because all the crazy stuff happened at the end. There's only a couple different ways you catch them at La Crosse. You ran a long ways. You caught him one of the ways you're supposed to catch him. You got stuck coming back. Fair assessment, Matt?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Okay. One of the reasons why I wanted Sarah on was because I was feeling anxiety. They were saying, I'm texting with Jody White. He's like, well, according to the local, one of the barge doors is stuck, and it always is stuck. So it takes 4 minutes to close. It's 8 minutes to this barge. It's a 7-minute run back in. They have this long to idle. They're screwed. And then all of a sudden they're like, dude, the barge guy did him, or the lock guy did him solid. I could imagine I knew what I was going through. What was it like for you, sir? Were you watching that? Were you taking care of kids? Were you at the weigh-in wondering what the heck is going on? Like, what are you doing at this time?
Good question. It was most likely the most stressful 3 hours of my life ever. I'm saying from probably like 12:30 to 2:30. So 2 hours. But I was at my brother's house. He lives in the Crosse. So I was there because it was so hot. We were watching live. I actually did not watch the extended coverage. I was so upset because I was like, this barge is not going to move. So at like 1:55, I ordered Hank to turn off the Kindle. I'm like, I can't handle any more live. Like, I can't, because it was just all JT and Marty, all they were talking about for like 2 hours is this barge. We get these shots of the guys like bobbing in the water. And I lived on the Mississippi when I was in chiropractic school, and Matt and I have fished the Mississippi River many a times. I mean, I've been in those locks with you. I've fished tournaments locking up and down that river with you. So I was fairly certain. I thought there was a 98% chance they were stuck. So it was miserable. It was awful. Cause you can't do anything about it. And so the last 30 minutes we were actually driving, from 2 until 2:30 when check-in was, I was driving from my brother's house, and I didn't go fast. I just kind of was processing like, all right, this isn't our time. This isn't going to happen. There's no way they're getting through. How do I support Matt when he gets off the water? Like, what's he going to need from me to know that he had the winning fish, but he didn't win? Which was really awful.
Because you're 12 years into this thing. You quit a career to do this. You've had some close calls, but this was it. This is the BPT. This is you winning your first event, getting the hardware in front of your family in your hometown. This is a Cinderella story.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's funny because that's exactly what was going through my head. So often I feel like we feel alone on the water. We're out there. In my case, I had a camera guy with me, but it was one of those things where you just feel like it's an individual sport. You're out there alone. And we got to the lock at like 12:30ish, had to be in at 2:30. And the barge was a surprise. We did not expect to see that barge there. So to see that and to see where they were at in the process, I still thought when I got there that we had a pretty good shot, because it was a double barge. So it was one of the big long ones, 6 sections. They have to lock through in 2 separate locking systems. which means it takes at least twice as long because there's a lot of tying up and untying and retying up and pushing parts in and out. And it generally takes at least 2 to 2.5 hours. But when I got there, there was one section of the barge had already come up and was tied up, and the tug was going back down. So I felt like, okay, we probably got another hour and a half, but I was like, I felt pretty confident still. But as we continued to wait and you could see how things were not progressing, it definitely started becoming pretty apparent to me that we might not get through. And, it's funny because, the majority of the top 10 was up there. And
like what, first through fourth?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it was, myself and Steve Lopez was leading going in. I was in second going in. Tom Mansour was up there. Nick Trim was up there. Jared Lintner. I think we all finished in the top 6, the 5 of us.
So that completely negates Jeff Fruick's comment that said Tom Mansour made it happen is what he heard. He wouldn't have locked
Oh, we
himself
did get
out.
there.
I know it was a
Tom
joke.
made it
He was joking.
So really from a mindset standpoint, the crazy part was how, we all kind of were just in a ball of boats talking, kind of still joking around like, okay, we've got almost 2 hours. Like we're going to be okay. Tom's up there. We'll be fine.
But you're freaking out at home, Sarah, because you know what's up, because they've on live said, hey, these guys are fishing, having a great time, thinking they're fishing for the tournament, completely oblivious. But on TV, you're seeing the drone shots and the overhead shots. So you're watching him catch fish while going, cool. It might not mean anything.
Yeah. Well, if we rewind a little bit earlier in the morning, he didn't have much in the early morning because it took a few hours to get up to pool 8. And, so they cut to him, and I don't remember if he caught a fish or whatever, but he was talking. He's like, my best stretch of water is right up there. I'm just getting started. He was calm, cool, and collected. And I was like, there's no reason to be worried right now. This was probably like 10:30. So then fast forward to about 12. That's when you must have like weighed in all your fish. And all of a sudden you went from being like 8th or 9th to leading. That's when the stress really happened, because that's also concurrently about when the barge discussion started happening. So it was, now he's leading and there's a barge. He doesn't know there's a barge. And like Hank was like, Mommy, call Daddy. Let him know there's a barge. Let him know. Go tell him. Yeah. And I was like, buddy, I can't call him,
No one told you, Matt? The cameraman didn't tell you? No one on the water? There wasn't a spectator that was like, hey, Matt, good job, but you're screwed. Like nothing of that nature ever happened?
No, the funny thing is, so all week long, there were probably 20 boats that locked up to pool 7 the first couple days. And every morning and every morning we had a barge in the lock. We didn't get up there till 8:30, almost probably roughly 2 hours into the day. So by the time we all locked up, we're all sitting around talking before we even locked in. We lost a lot of time coming back. There were barges that were just outside the lock every day, right around 12:30, 1 o'clock. So we were locking back around that same time together too. So we all were really working together, as much as we're competitors. When we're locking through, everyone is like, okay, everyone's checking their apps. Everyone's like, we're going to have to be back at this time. Almost all of us were fishing this. We were all in the lower end of pool 7. And, when you'd run by somebody, there was a lot of stopping and talking like, hey, are we still good for the 1 o'clock time to check through? Like, have you noticed anything? Everybody felt confident that we'd be able to go at 1 o'clock, even potentially push it. But there was one barge that we saw starting to come down from the top end of pool 7. So we were not expecting it, just to finish the mindset that we had. We feel like we're alone out there, and you don't think about what's going on at home, but that whole live concept, they knew way more than we did. So they're stressing out way more than we were on the water. We didn't start stressing out until we were all sitting at the lock talking and just seeing it progress so slow. And it went from all of us in one group of boats talking to kind of, hey, how'd it go? Did you catch them? Did you catch them over here type thing, to, probably around like, I'm going to say 1:30ish, everyone just dispersed. And we all went and we
No
all were
way.
separated at that point. And we all were just sick to our stomach. Like we didn't want to talk to anybody. We didn't want to do anything. I mean, I'm sitting there by myself. Steve Lopez went off by himself. I'm over, doing my own thing just because you didn't want to talk to anybody. My camera guy's like, what's going through your head? And I'm like, I don't, all I could think about was, what would I tell Sarah? What would I tell my family? I had a lot of family and friends there. Like, when I roll into the dock 20 minutes late, have to release my fish, like, what am I going to tell them? Like, I was definitely upset from the standpoint of like, this was a shot to win. You get so few shots to win, but I was so much more concerned about like, almost like an embarrassment standpoint. Like I let them down, even though I know a lot of it's potentially out of my control to a point. But the reality is it's like, we work so hard that the last thing you want to do is come home and not do what we were supposed to do. So it was an extremely mentally taxing for me, more like last hour. For them, it was more like probably the last 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. The day before, there have been a few times, even almost never call me like on tournament days, but there have been a few times like when you ran across Erie or whatever, like just to let me know that he's okay, because he made like a stupid 2-hour long run or whatever it was, and I get worried, like, is he okay? And so he called me on Wednesday just to let me know that he was in the lock. Like he's like, I'm in the lock, I'm heading back. I'm like, oh, thank God. So it was a relief on Wednesday to know that he was going to get back, right? Because that was really important to lock up BPT. Because if we hadn't gotten back, we wouldn't have even gotten.
Yeah, you did have that locked in regardless, because you were going to be in the top 30. What was at stake here was, well, everybody that was in the lock was going to make 10,000 instead of 50,000, 100,000, 20,000, and 18,000. So there was a lot of money on the line.
Yeah, it would have been a big pay cut as well.
So were you angry at anyone individual, Matt? Like, were you like hating the barge guy? Where you hate, like, was it just because the worst thing that I have is anger with no one to direct it towards?
Yeah, I mean, it's a
good question.
I don't know if I'd say I was angry. It's more frustration. When I recognize they're doing a job, I'm doing a job. Their priority is getting barge traffic, commercial traffic up and down the river. I did definitely have frustration as to why are these guys not like hustling? Why is nothing moving? Like they're obviously ready to start moving, but at the same time, having enough experience on the river, it's not uncommon for barges to break and need to get repaired. So it's like, I don't know what,
that risk. You're taking that risk.
Exactly. So I can't say I knew what was going on or not going on. And to have a live camera in the boat, which I didn't even know was still filming live. So I guess that's the first time they've ever carried live from 2:00 on to the end of the day. But it was such good TV that they wanted to keep it going. But
such good drama.
But
thank you.
But they're still filming for the TV show. So it's one of those things where I can't just. I feel like I still had to be very professional in terms of, hey, they're going to catch all this on camera. But the reality is it's not like I wanted to throw a big temper tantrum. I just was sick to my stomach and didn't want to talk, didn't want to do anything. And, we had discussed earlier, the anglers, that we needed to be in the lock by 2:05 to get through. And at 2:00, I hear Tom Mansour laughing, and I was just like, man, Tom is just, why is he like, this is not a time to be laughing. And I turn around and he's like, and Tom's got one of those grandpa laughs that just makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Like, it's just one of the most like pleasing sounds. Right. And I turn around because he was behind me and he's like idling over to me and he just comes up and he goes, Matt, we're going to get your fish in. You know, we're all good. And I look back at the barge and I'm like, nothing has changed, Tom. Like, why are you saying that? And he goes, Matt, we're going to be all right. You know, I called the lockmaster. They're going to do what they can to get us through. And
Well,
at
yeah,
that
because
point,
he knows everybody.
yeah, he's the king of lacrosse, dude. He knows everybody. And he, you know, and keep in mind, we all can call the lockmaster. We have the numbers. The problem is they don't like to answer the phone for us because we're calling them every 5 minutes. You know, if it's not me, it's one of the other 200 anglers.
What the hell?
And,
what the hell?
Yeah, so they just like stop calling. And I think he's got a good enough relation where they probably picked up his phone call because it was probably a buddy of his from high school or
he
something.
He probably called the cell phone from the guy and he's like, hey, Jim, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, exactly. And he just, so in that conversation, you know, I looked at him, I said, Tom, you really think we're going to get through? He goes, I feel really good. We're going to get you your first win. And at that point,
nice.
I was like, at that point I was just like a calm came over me. I looked at the clock. It was 2:04:30. I look up and the barge, like I see the guys, our barge operators that like actually started like not running, but like hustling. And the barge starts to move out of there. And at that point I was like, okay, well, if they really get us in, everyone gets lined up and it gets us through, we got a shot at this. And the barge guys the lockmasters did a phenomenal job to get us in and out. And I think it probably helped us significantly as well, that on that last day, I think there were only 7 or 8 boats coming back versus, you know, the earlier cycles we had enough boats to line up almost both sides of the lock.
Just
and that takes a lot longer.
In and out.
Yeah, exactly. So that takes a lot longer, but I mean, and they did a great job. I mean, they told us exactly when to go. They told us where, you know, the no wake line started and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and when we came out of that lock, I can tell you this, we all thought we were Ricky Bobby. I'll tell you that.
Did they let you out first or was it Lopez?
Well, so the anglers we had, as we're going in the locks, we're all trying to direct everyone as to where to go. And
who's in there? 1 second. So it's you, Steve Lopez, Tom Monsoor. Is Nick Trim in there?
Yeah, Nick Trim was in there. Paul Elias was in there. Jared Lintner was in there.
Oh, so you had some veterans. You had some veterans in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I mean. We all knew what we were doing. The Paul Elias snuck in the front. So he was the first guy in. And then Steve and I, they caught us on camera, like arguing with each other as to who should go first. Because Steve knew I had more weight. So he wanted me to go in front of him. And I was telling him he was the day 2 leader, that he should go in front of me. But
that's fair.
I ended up going second. He went third. I think Tom was 4th. I think Jared Lintner was 5th, and then Nick Trim was
Paul I said, screw y'all, I'm going in the lock.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, he kind of
dude. He can do it ever. He's won the 82 Classic kneeling and reeling. He waits for no lock, man.
It was one of those things, like, I swear, while we were all like talking, idling in there as to who goes where, it was like all of a sudden he was just like right up past us and in there, which is
fantastic.
Fine. I mean,
it did. 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So
we all got back. And
Sarah, I'm kind of trying to switch back and forth to get both perspectives at the time. So it's like you have hope now, Matt. You kind of realize what's going on. You've long given up watching it, Sarah, but now I would assume you're at the weigh-in with friends and family, and there's people all around that are now trying to tell you what's going on. So, like, did you know at this point, like, how he's going to make it, or was it not until, like Matt said, the Talladega Nights, they came down where you're like, holy cow, there they are. They're going to all make it. And then it was just jubilation and excitement.
So we left my brother's house at like 2. Like I said, I wasn't in a rush. My brother's house is like 20 minutes from the ramp probably. And I had like that 2% of hope that they were going to make it through. So I was like, I'm going to do everything like I did yesterday. I went to the same Quick Trip. I got Matt Arnold Palmer. I parked in the same spot at the ramp, like in the same position, like everything. But I like, by the time I got to the ramp, it was probably 2:28. And so I'm walking across, there's a big field in the big parking lot to get over to like where the water is and where the docks are. And so I'm just kind of like lollygagging. Cause again, I have no
So
faith.
you still didn't know when you got to the parking
No,
lot?
I had no idea.
Oh.
So I get over there and your mom is there and your dad is there. And I think it was Jeremiah, a friend of my brother's that you also know. I've met him once or twice. I get over there and I'm like, so what's going on? Like, just like in general to people. And they're like, they made it. And I was like, what? Like, they made it. Like, they actually made it to check-in. And they're like, yeah, they made it. And I hooped and hollered. I know I jumped up and down. I high-fived anyone in the vicinity of me. Everyone probably thought I was crazy. And then we had about 5 minutes until we actually saw you guys come into the ramp area, because there's an idle. There's like a 5 or 6 minute idle from the check-in boat to the docks. So by the time we saw you come in, that's why I was like, I ran down the dock to you, because I had only known that you had made it in for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I didn't know. Sarah comes running down to the dock as I'm pulling in, and I had an emotional breakdown in that 10-minute idle. Like I was mentally exhausted and done, and then to see her run on the dock, like I didn't know I had won. All I knew is I most likely
had a
more weight
chance
than Steve Lopez, but there are some other hammers that were not in that lock, right?
Tell the Steve Lopez story on how you knew you had more weight than Steve Lopez. You told me that. I thought that was real interesting, the conversation you had with him in the morning on the way up there.
Yeah, so Steve's a fantastic angler, a fellow Wisconsin angler. And we had been talking every day in the locks in the morning going up to pool 7 and the locks coming back from pool 7 the first 2 days. And in the morning on day 3, we were all excited because we thought we knew there was a barge coming. We thought we'd be able to get through the locks and be able to fish a full day. Because keep in mind, everyone who was up at pool 7, we fished about 3 hours a day. That's all we fished. So we were excited to get up there on day 3 and to have like a full days of fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And we get there and the fog starts rolling in. So we ended up getting a fog delay of a half hour, which then pushed us behind the barge. So we didn't end up getting back up to pool 7 until like 9 o'clock again. But during that fog delay, we had been sharing roughly what we were catching each day. And I just went up to him. I said, Steve, I'm going to ask you to do me one favor. Like, I know we're probably going to see each other coming down from pool 7 at the end of the day. I said, if you ask me what I have, I'm going to tell you what I have. And if you don't ask me, that's fine. I won't ask you, but if you ask me and I tell you the weight, I would like you to give me your weight as well. And I said, the reason for that is because 2 years ago at the St. Lawrence River, I came back to the docks and everyone made me feel as if I had won that event. I ended up finishing second in that event. And because like people were lining up, day 5 and, I'm standing in the bag line with my fish getting ready to weigh, and people are like, okay, you got to do this as the winner. You got to do this. And then ended up coming in second in that event based on, the weights being somewhat off. This is before we were using the Bubba scale and all that. It was a devastating experience for me to think I had won my first tournament and then to find out that I had been sandbagged, not necessarily based on what Cody Pike did, but based on everything. Like everyone had made me think I had won that event. And I just told Steve in the morning, I said, it's crushing to be in that position. It's one thing to finish second and have a great tournament and not really think you had won the event. But I said, in this case, I just don't want to be sandbagged again. Like it's not good for either of us. I said, if you don't want to share the weights, that's fine. But if we want to share weights, let's keep it real. I'll give you my weight. You give me your weight. And when we were waiting at the lock in the afternoon, he came up and he's like, well, what do you got, Matt? And I said, well, my scales, I said, I got a little over 15. My Bubba scale says 15.3. And he did the calculations in his head and he's like, I think you got it. I think I'm light. He's like, my scales say 13.5. Each day they've been a little bit light, but I don't think I've got enough.
That's how it came
so
out.
that's when I really thought I had a shot at it. But at the same time, when we're having that discussion, I've got the barge over my shoulder that's not moving. So it was one of those things where, first off, as a competitor, when he tells me that, it's not like I want to be like fist pumping in front of him because I've been there, right? Like that's going to make him feel terrible. But to go from like, I got there, I never really thought during the day that I had a shot to win it. 15 pounds is a really good bag in the summer on the Mississippi River, but Steve was making it easy. Like he was going up there catching 16. I think he had 17 the first day,
17, 12.
Yeah. And he was doing it like in the first hour. Like he had groups of fish that he was catching, and the quality fish he was catching were the same quality I was catching. He just had like more refined schools. I had a stretch that I kind of had to fish through. And I really, I think he had a 12 ounce lead going into the final day. So in my head, I'm going, I need probably 16 pounds, and he would have to have low 15s for me to have a shot. I didn't think he would come out of there with anything less than 15 pounds. So I didn't think I had it all day. Get to the lock, thinking I'm in second place. We discussed, our weights. Then it like, okay, I think I might actually have a shot at this, because we had a 2-pound lead. I had a 2-pound lead over third. So at that point, I know somebody needed 17 and change. And then, to go from thinking I had the weight to, I don't think I'm going to get to weigh it in, to, oh my God, we're in the lock, we have a shot, to racing back and getting back, with a couple minutes to spare. It was
still not knowing that you had won. Because Sarah, when you saw him, you kind of had a better idea because you had seen all the fish catches during the day and all the guys talking. So you probably knew that if he got back, he won, because it was only like 10 ounces, which isn't that much. But you knew when you saw him, most likely that it was, still nervous, but more so that you knew it was over.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's why I ran out to the docks, because I think it was such a weirdly emotional day, because it was so stressful knowing that he was stuck with those barges. And then when I found out that he made it through, it was like this massive relief, but there was so much adrenaline. I don't know. It was really hard to like you were breaking down, almost broke down on stage. Like I almost broke down, but at the same time, it was just like this huge relief. Like, oh my God, like it worked out. I don't know if that makes sense.
And it wasn't even
no, it 100% does.
I think for both of us, it wasn't necessarily like relief for the tournament. It was like career relief.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. What were you guys doing? What were you guys doing in March of 2011? Because that was the first time you fished a professional tournament as a professional angler on the FLW tour. That was your first go.
It's a long time ago.
Like, think about, is that what you're feeling? Is all that from that 2011 all the way to 2023? You talked about the journey and all that. That's everything that was coming out in one day.
Yeah, I left a corporate job in the financial world in downtown Chicago. When I started fishing the FLW tour in 2011, I still was working that job. I did that job for 3 or 4 years before quitting and going full time.
Great show. You have to go back and watch it. Milk and Dairy Securities. You made sure that the mob wasn't jacking with the Munster prices.
So the thing with that is, when I left, I didn't have any sponsors. I didn't have anything. I just wanted to be happy in life and chase green fish and brown fish, right? Like that's what I wanted to do. But when I left that, I left a phenomenal job, like great pay, great vacation,
really
great
good benefits,
like
which we don't have anymore.
It was there were a lot of people. I won't say people didn't support me, but there were a lot of people that were very clear that you might not be making a good decision. Especially keep in mind, I had no good sponsors. Like I didn't have Bridgeford Foods. I didn't have anything. And it was really just a complete, where we were both somewhat unhappy with our jobs in the Chicago area and wanted to get out of the city. And we moved. So for me, that win was like vindication for
Mm-hmm.
me. It was me feeling like I had actually justified me giving up a good job in a selfish move to pursue what I'm doing. Like, I don't know how there's no real way to justify it, because a lot of people would look at my stats and say, Matt, you've done it for 13 years now. You're tons of championships. You've made a career out of it. But I can finally say
without that
won
win,
one.
it was like incomplete.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, Matt and I have been together since we were 19.
College.
Yeah. So I've grown with Matt and the different tournament trails. I mean, first it was the locals and he would dominate the locals. And then it was regionals and he would dominate the regionals. And then he went national. And there was a few years in there where I was like, well, yeah, you're doing all right. You know, we're okay. Not awesome, but not terrible. You love it. But then it started to pick up speed and momentum. And I think it's probably been like the last 5 years. Because I mean, for a while, I'd be like, he'd go to a local tournament. I'd be like, you didn't win it. That's not good enough. You know, like I just kind of expected him to win, like whenever he would go to the locals or the regionals, because I knew he was capable of it. So the last few years, I think we both knew we're like, this is an absolute possibility. Like it is 100% within your wheelhouse to win a tournament. So every time you win somewhere, I was like, okay, this is it. Like, we're going to win. We have got the potential of winning, you know? And the funny thing about lacrosse is, like, that never crossed my mind until day 3. I mean, I think because our goal was so much, and I say ours, it's really yours.
It is ours.
Everybody that I talk to, it's always a team. There's never unless it's just to say every top level guy, it's a team. Like Kevin has Sherry.
Yeah. So, you know, when we went into lacrosse, it was not, okay, go win the tournament. I know you're capable of it, but I don't care about that. All I care about is you completing your goal of getting to BPT. And so I don't know if I've ever had a moment of like, it wasn't transcendence, but like on day 3, when I not sent you out, but when you left, you're like, okay, I'm, 4:00 in the morning, you get up, you go brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, get your jersey on. And you're like, okay, I'm taking off. I was like, go get him, go have fun. There was like zero expectation, zero pressure, because we had already achieved the goal that we'd come there for. And it wasn't until later in the day when I really was like, holy schmoly, like he could win this. Like, oh my God. And if that was to happen, it would be like, just everything would come full circle and be like, this is it. But justification and validation, I think, are the 2 words that I would use for that as well.
Yeah, it was, I feel the same way. That is as comfortable as I feel on the river, and as much as everyone was predicting me to be a lock for BPT because I had a 78-point cushion, which meant if I was in the top 78 out of 150 guys,
which is a double-edged sword, because it's easy to fish for freaking 75th then. Yeah,
exactly. So that, so after my practice, I was like, there's major concern here. Like the best thing I found was pool 9. Chasing smallmouth, but I know how here, they can be here and gone, especially river smallmouth, especially when you're talking about so little current that was on the river. It just was like, I didn't want to base it off that. And I ended up going to pool 7 because I had some smallmouth stuff on the main river and I had some largemouth stuff. So I felt like I could bounce back and forth, but it was not like I knew I had the winning spot by any means.
He called me after the third day of practice. Yeah. He's like, and I've heard him, I've heard it all, right? I mean, over the course of the years, like, oh my God, I got this school fish, or, oh my God, practice sucks, or, oh, it's a grind, which I hate that word. I've always hated that word. But he calls me and I could like hear it in his voice. He's like, this was terrible. Like, this practice was terrible. Like, terrible. And I was like, oh shoot, I probably said a swear word more than that, but I was
did you say holy schmoly?
Yeah, holy schmoly.
That what got me going.
Oh geez.
Golly,
sorry. Continue your thoughts. Told you practice was terrible.
No, so he's trying, and I'm like, I don't even know what to say to him at this point, because most of the time I know that I've learned over the course of years that it's not what I say most of the time. Most of the time I just need to be a sounding board, and I need to just be here for him to like just hear it and reflect it back and let him know that no matter what happens, I'm here to support him. But I was like, I don't know what to tell him. So I think that was a really quick conversation. And then you call me back like an hour and a half later, or maybe that's when I called you about the otters in the yard. And I was like, this is a different
day. I talked to you on the
Oh yeah. It was like a different human being. I was like, okay, something happened over there, and he's calm. He's cool.
I had a really odd moment, for generally I always feel like my practice is not as good as it should be, but that's because I shake off 90% of the fish. So like, I don't
one
know.
Of those guys.
Well, it tends to work.
Listen, I room with Andrew Upshaw, and Andrew Upshaw catches 2 to 3 fish a day. And you don't find out till after the tournament that he shook off 18 to 30. Yeah. Dude, I've only put 2 fish in the boat like all day. Like it's a real struggle. Neither of them were keepers. I'm like, really? I'm getting some bites afterwards. I said, I thought you only caught 2 there. I did, but I like shook off like 3 on every stump down this quarter mile. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm not
practice sandbagging. Is that what that is?
I'm not a practice sandbagger. So like, if people ask me, I'll like with the winning spot, or that stretch, the first two fish I caught, one at the time in my head, I was like, that's probably a 2 3/4 pounder, and the other I thought was about a 2 1/4. They probably were more like 3 and a 2 1/2, and I only say that because the fish were weighing way heavier than I thought. I then proceeded to fish the rest of that area, and I think I shook off another 5 bites, and over the course of a couple hours. So it was not like I felt like I could go there and catch a limit there. I did not think I would come out of there with 16, over a 16 pound average for 3 days. But I did have we've got an off day in between practice and the tournament. And it was like that afternoon, I had done my Bridgeford sponsor promo stuff that I do. We'd gone to the registration meeting. I had rigged up all my rods. It was hotter than heck sitting in the boat at her brother's house doing it. And I went in and took a shower, and I came out of the shower. It was like in the shower, I just was like, everything's going to be fine. I just got to go fishing. And it was like, it was like a huge relief. And from that point on, I went from being so tense to I'm just out fishing, having fun. And for me, that's where I need to be from a mental standpoint. But I think having like 6 weeks or 5 weeks between the Potomac River event and that La Crosse event was a very stressful time for me because, you're thinking about possibilities and what you need to do and, how I want to approach practice. And then I get to practice and the water's at such a low level, the lowest I'd ever seen, that it was like, I don't even know where to begin. All my history is not existent at this point. And to get through practice at that point, you just kind of got to release it all and be like, all right, I'm going to go fish and see what happens. And that's kind of what happened. But it was, it was a wild event. I wouldn't change anything at this point because it really makes it feel that much more special to have all the family and friends and to have the barge. And it's a story for me that has like a happy ending. And part of me even says that whole barge thing potentially is what helped me win, because had that barge not been there, we probably all would have gotten to fish for another hour, and maybe Steve would have caught a big fish. And
I never thought about that.
Never thought about that either.
It's just one of those things at this point, if for me as a happy ending fairy tale story, it ended well, and I wouldn't change it.
Was the lock and dam, was it the lock and dam number 7 or was it lock and dam number 8?
It was lock and dam 7. So that forms pool 7.
Okay. So here, I'll just give everybody a little taste of what it looks like, just so you could, I found this on the interwebs. There it is right there. Right. So you have to wait. Like you have to wait for those doors to close. Like imagine Matt just sitting in there. Sarah pacing the dock. I mean, look at that. And you're sitting there and you're going tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
Here, I've got some other pictures.
Once they drop it out, you got to wait for it on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you get there. You'll see some stuff in the background, but I mean, that's what it looks like. There's barges going
Yeah,
through
it's
it.
not like some of those.
It's not
pleasure boat-
massive.
It's pretty massive.
I mean, it's pretty big when you talk about getting them big barges in.
Yeah, I mean,
That's-
you're right.
That's the thing.
It's not a pleasure boat lock. It's not,
Yeah.
that takes a long time to fill that bad boy.
Yeah, it's not like going from Lake Toho down to Kissimmee. I mean,
Okay.
it's
Yeah, I was thinking
they-
more like the Arkansas River where they put like 130 open boats in there going down into Kerr. How
Yeah,
many
but they
boats can
could-
you fit in this?
Oh, we could fit more. You could fit the full field for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, it's probably the same size as the ones on the Arkansas River. I mean, they
Yeah,
gotta
it
be
does
big
look
enough for the
it does
commercial
look
traffic.
massive.
And I mean, it's one of those things you got to idle in, and they make you idle up to the front of the lock, and it feels like you're idling for a quarter mile.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it right there. That's a barge
Is that
leaving the
the,
lock. That's the prettiest sight that you've ever seen right there.
Is it Sheila K. Barger was the barge name? And here's the reason I
Wait a
have
second.
such a
Was it
big-
really? How do you spell that?
Yeah. Sheila K. Barger, Barger. I'll never forget it. She got us both days on day 3. And this is what happened. This is why we didn't expect there to be a barge. So when we had that fog delay, Sheila K. pulled up in the barge from the top end of pool 7. So she was locking down into pool 8. Double barge took 2 hours. So she finally got through. We all on our apps saw Sheila K. That's her.
That's her.
That's her. God, I don't like you, Sheila. Maybe I do like you. I don't know at this point. I'm mixed. But she was going downstream. But on the apps, well, so when we pulled in, it looked like she was actually staging below the lock. And on the apps, that's where it was staged for like the next hour or so. What must have happened though is she must have gone down maybe into the La Crosse area and unloaded one container, the front container, and then turned around and came back up. So by the time I started looking at the apps and everyone else started looking at the apps, which was probably like 11:30 noon again, Sheila K was already back up to the bottom of pool 7 or the bottom of the lock and that forms pool 7 and staging to come back. So when I'm looking at the app, you can click on the ship and see what the name is. And I'm like, oh, it's Sheila K. So she's still sitting below the lock. I didn't know because we hadn't looked at our app that watches barge traffic that she had actually left the bottom of the lock and gone down, dropped off a load, and then he'd come back during that 5-hour window or 4-hour window. So when, I started looking at the app again, I'm like, oh, Sheila K is still under the lock. And in fact, what she was doing was staging to come back up to pool 7, which is not, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Generally a lot of those barges are going hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be going all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So it was one of those things where I think a lot of us, that's what we recognized. We thought she wasn't on the app. She was in fact on the app.
349 meters long, 33 meters wide, 4.3.
Not sure
I
how
guess
I
his
feel about
cruising
doing-
average speed is 4. What is KN? Kilonauts?
Knots.
Knots. I knew that.
So-
Knots.
Little, yeah, it's a little bit. I think it's like
that'll make me look like an idiot.
I think it's like 1.3 mile an hour per knot.
Okay.
Because this is all stuff we're watching. You're seeing barge traffic and it's showing.
Well, that's
how
what I
fast
showed
it's
that
going, so you
previous
gotta measure
screen
it.
was barge traffic
Oh yeah,
on the
yep.
Mississippi that showed all of the tracks and all that. All right, we need to take a break. We're almost an hour in. One more question I had. Are your boys like old enough to understand what was going on, to appreciate this, to be like, my dad kicked everyone's butt, or are they just like, cool, dad's back?
Yeah.
So I'll answer and Matt can answer too. But so I was with the boys all day on that day 3, the final day. And Hank was glued. He would watch every minute of live. I had to peel him off the parking lot on day 2 to after the weigh-in because he wanted to watch everyone weigh in. He knows everyone. He knows
How
everyone.
old is he?
he just turned 7.
Okay.
He knows all the stats. And so Hank was totally into it, and he was a nervous wreck. He's a nervous Nelly anyways. Like if Matt's running low on gas in the car and he says something, Hank's like, Daddy, we're going to make it. Daddy, we're going to make it. We don't have gas. So he's a nervous Nelly. But he was a nervous wreck that day. But Duke, who's 5,
just turned 5.
he was making crafts at my brother's
Could care
house
less.
and playing with the cat and running around. No, didn't really care. And in fact, he almost not ruined, but from about 3:30 to 4:30, he was in a major downward spiral. You don't know this, but like I had to like put out fire after fire with Duke because he just wanted to have a major tantrum at the weigh-in.
Yeah,
and I was like,
so...
Mom, my mom was there. I was like, Mom, if Matt wins, I'm going on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Can you make sure Duke is okay? Because it was so hot. That was he was tired. He was hot. So Duke didn't really get it. Hank, on the other hand, was enthralled.
Yeah, it was one of those. I mean, all 3 days, it was like you're walking around and everyone is like, their hair is just solid sweat. Like it didn't matter if you were sitting there watching or, fishing. It was just, it was a sweat bath. But I will say, like Hank is a mini me. Like he reminds me so much of me as a child, like being so infatuated with fishing to the point of it almost being annoying, right? Like everything, all you want to do is talk fishing. What'd you catch it on? What color? Blah, blah, blah.
We got stuck on a sandbar the other day and we couldn't stop him from casting because he was in the water casting. Hey, there we are.
So
he's crazy.
The one thing I will add, like for me,
look how angry Duke is there. He's like, Duke wants nothing to do with life.
He does not look thrilled.
Yeah.
No.
One of my greatest takeaways from that event. So I have 2 really fond memories that'll be like burned into my head, like visions. And one was Sarah running down to the dock as I was like idling in. I'll never forget that. The other is on stage holding the trophy, like with Sarah next to me, like just, kind of doing the post-tournament interview. We had just had the fireworks go off on stage and I looked down and Hank is like separated from my family,
right in front of us,
standing right in front of the TV crew, which is pretty much right in front of the stage. And he's looking at me like
that vantage point. Look how sweaty and disgusting I am. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
It was so gross.
There's actually a picture if you go through the MLF website that shows like him and he's in a jersey and you can see it, but he just like, he and I made eye contact just like looking, where I was like, I've really made him proud.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. That
cool
was
shot. There it is right there. There he is watching. He's looking right at you.
That's just a memory. Like we made eye contact and I was like,
yeah, I did too.
He's going to remember this and I'm going to remember this. And that was a special moment.
I mean, it's obviously from what I get about this, the money is nice. But it seems like it's about who you had around you at this tournament.
We didn't even care about the money. I mean, I shouldn't say we didn't care about the money.
Yeah,
I mean, that was like a tertiary conversation to everything else.
It was the cap stone or the top piece on a career that now you have to start all over.
Well, that's what everyone says, like, oh, you finally made it. And I'm like, I made it back to where I was is kind of how I feel
the top level of the league that you're fishing with.
Yeah. But that's why that tournament was so important for us to qualify, to get back to the top level, to win an event, like to have that trophy just makes me feel like my career is somewhat worthwhile at this point. And like Sarah said, the money is, don't get me wrong, the money is great. It's a job. The money is what allows us to be out there, but it's not life-changing money. I mean, you take your taxes out of that. We're going to put a big chunk of it into like the kids' college funds and stuff. And it's like, okay, there's a little bit left over. We'll just put it into savings. I mean, it's not like there's that much money, but
It's not like the Mega Millions or whatever.
yeah, but
coming up.
the reality is for us as a family, for us to move to the next level, to
Continue
continue
this
to
as a
build
career.
to build the brand, and to be able to continue, to fish for a living. This was something that had to happen. I mean, I started looking at, I sent him the stats to you the other day, Matt, just as as something that I thought was interesting, where when you look at the payouts that happen,
I feel like we
throughout
should take
these
a break
circuits.
before we get into this.
Do you want to take a break, Matt? You look like you're
We're
sleeping.
good. We can finish this. No, I'm looking at all this. I'm pulling up a bunch of other stuff here. That's what I have to do.
So,
I'm not making that type of money on YouTube, Matt. So I have to be my own like editor and producer and host the show.
Have you seen my
videos? I'm not out there winning 80K.
Here, this is one of the reasons why it's so important. I'm just pulling up the text that I sent you, so I have some numbers that are somewhat straight. But this year, fishing the MLF Invitationals, so there were over 200 of us that fished that. There were only 31 guys that won $30,000 or more. So that's roughly 20% of the field. But keep in mind that the entry fees alone is $30,000.
Yeah.
To fish those 6 events, bare minimum, you're looking at another $10,000 in just, like, if you look at just lodging and gas for the week. So that's $40,000 to fish those 6 events. Out of the field, there were only 17 guys that made $40,000. So you're looking at an 8% of the field potentially made money fishing. Now, I would argue you need to make a lot more than 40,000 after all of the different write-offs to be able to say that you actually made money. But 17 guys out of 203 that made $40,000 that broke even on minimum, the bare minimum expenses is not good. But for me, then when I look at the MLF winnings after this year, they had
BPT.
I'm sorry, BPT. They had
they make money, Matt, because they're only 10-8 in. I don't know how public knowledge it is there, but they've got some like anglers board deal where basically each angler's only paying 10-8, and then after they cash a check, they take some money out of it. So like you could go 0 for in MLF and you're only out like 10-3 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think there were 12 of the 80 anglers that won over $100,000 in winnings.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were roughly half the field had 60,000 or more in winnings. And I think there were like 30 guys out of the 80 that had 75,000 or more.
And that doesn't include the team stuff. That doesn't include, I don't believe, heavy hitters. That doesn't include any of the extra stuff that they have too. They pay some money.
Yeah.
Matt.
Yeah. So from a business perspective, for me to get into BPT, I've got much greater reward with much less risk because you're guaranteed money back, even if you come in last place. So it's huge because it's now, granted, I know it's all based on performance again, but if you continue to perform, the reward is much better than what it can be at the if you want to call it AAA levels, the Bass Opens or the Invitational.
The Invitational payout was atrocious. They gutted it going into this year. Like I said, you were one of like the 5% of the guys who actually made it freaking work. Everyone else operated at a loss.
Yeah, but it's the same for the Opens. The Opens are the same way. I mean, the membership, the way I look at it is to fish each tournament, you got to pay a membership fee. I had a $5,000 entry fee, and it was an 80% payback. So the 20%, $1,000 went to, whatever, MLF to run the tournament. I'm not saying that they're making money from me or losing money, but that's the payout. $4,000 of that $5,000 entry fee came back to the anglers in the form of payout on an individual tournament basis. So from that standpoint, it's like you're paying a membership fee just to have a shot to fish, but it's not a good return. So for me as an angler, for you as an angler, Matt, for everyone that's fishing at that level, we have to get to the next level to really make a good career from a tournament perspective. Does not mean you have to be there to make a career as a fisherman. I'm just saying, if you want to make tournaments a priority in terms of your fishing career, that's where we need to be. And for us as a family to get back to that level is huge. Like it's not just a stress relief, but it also should allow us to continue to build our brand.
Anything else you want to get in here, sir? You're welcome to stick around for the next episode. I want to talk a little shop. If you're good to stick around, Matt, too. I want to talk a little core tackle. I want to talk a little KVD retirement. I want to talk off-season plans. You're welcome to stick around. I know you said you had Hank and Duke upstairs watching TV.
Yeah, I should probably go check in with them. I told them they were supposed to play for a few minutes and then they could watch TV, which normally they're not allowed to watch TV until.
I haven't heard a peep.
Yeah, that's not good.
Scary.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
not
I think I'll excuse myself because you guys can talk shop. I won't have much to throw in to that except.
That's up to you.
So.
As I said, this is your opportunity right now. If you want to get anything else out on BTL.
No, thanks for having us. This was fun.
I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was a different perspective. Greatly appreciate the hour.
How many women have you had on your show before, Matt?
Well, we had Matt's psychologist on the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're the only guy. Yeah, you're Katie Gruber. You're the only guy who has a mental coach and a chiropractor. So you better catch him.
I mean, I'm trying.
Every bass angler I think needs a chiropractor because again, like I said earlier, go find one.
It's actually that's where the trophy is right now, Matt.
Yeah,
it's been at the chiropractic clinic since I got it.
It is my office.
Yeah, it's sitting on the front desk. So if you want to go check it out, Infinity Wellness and Chiropractic in Stevens Point.
Well,
Wisconsin.
it's only there for the end of the week. But I mean, I've had my office open now for 10 years in Stevens Point and Plover, Central Wisconsin. And there are many days over those 10 years where I will play, like we have the live on, it's not the same as live now, but I would have the weigh-ins on for sure. On a Wednesday, Thursday. So my patients would always come in and be like, what are you watching? Instead of like our normal screenplay of like, health and get some exercise and make sure you're drinking water, like all the normal, educational stuff we have up there. There's like this Daniel Fennell or the guy before that, these guys with these Southern accents and these burly guys with fish, and everyone's like, what is
show us your bass?
Yeah. So everyone will be like, what is this? And so slowly over the course of 10 years, everyone has gotten indoctrinated, so many of my patients follow Matt, know what's going on. And even if they don't, if they come in, they're like, oh, is it tournament day? It must be tournament day, and so that's why when I asked Matt kind of tongue in cheek, I was like, can I take the trophy to the office? Because I never thought he would say yes. He's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, really? And the patients love it. They come in and they're like, I had a guy yesterday. He's like, so is that the trophy? Or he's a super quiet guy. He's like, is that the trophy your husband won? I'm like, how does Joe know about this? He didn't get a cell phone until 2 years ago. So, I mean, it's fun. It's fun to have it there. I'll take it. I'll bring it home. It'll be at our house now for the next 55 years. So
I might travel with it all next year.
We have to go to his brother's house this weekend. And my sister-in-law was like, you can only come down if you bring the trophy. So I don't know. It takes the front seat. Does it take the front seat if we bring it this week? And I am going to sit in the back with the boys?
Potentially.
Oh, gosh. Great.
On that note,
yes.
Thank you for jumping on.
Thanks for
first break
me.
of the show, fun. August 8th, 2023, MLF Invitational champ and latest. Are you the last member? You're the last member of the BPT because, I mean, you qualified on the last day of the Invitational. So the full field is now set for next year, right?
They haven't actually announced. Well, they haven't announced it though. I don't know. I don't know who's getting cut, who's potentially retiring, what spaces are not being filled. Maybe they have announced it, but I haven't actually seen it yet.
No, that makes good off-season stuff for podcast guys like myself. All right, we'll be back. Thank you, Sarah. Go check on the kids. We'll be back with Matt, Stefan. Like I said, I want to talk a little KVD, core tackle,
Yep.
and off-season plans. BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at ShorelineBoatandRV.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa.
I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Taiwan on Strike King.
So I'm a big guy, you know, a lunker, a two sandwich eating kind of man. And on behalf of all of those bigger, I gotta say it once and for all, it's bad enough that the fish look smaller in our hands. The last thing we should have to worry about is getting quality outdoor clothing that fits. AVCO, any fish, any water.
All right, we are back. Matt Stefan, joined by his lovely wife, Sarah. That was the first husband-wife duo we've had on. I was trying to think if we'd ever had like Jimmy and Chris Houston or anything on that, but that was a BTL first, Matt. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that and the different perspective.
That was fun.
You learned a little bit. It seems like there was a couple little details in there that you were unaware of until the interview.
Yeah, it's funny how, you know, you talk about things like behind the scenes or as a couple, and anytime you engage in a conversation like a podcast like this, or when we're talking with other friends and talking about the experience, there's always like new questions that pop up in my head, like, oh, what were you doing here this time, or when did you find this out? And it's just such a unique experience to like hear both sides of the story. Like I went back and watched some of that, like that last little bit of live, and to be like, oh my God, they had drones up watching the lock. Like, you know, they're talking about which engine on the barge is going. And, you know, it was like, we have no idea what's going on.
I can't believe no one filled you in on that. Like, why was I can't believe they were like, hey, this is what's going on. Like they just let you let you float there and freak out.
Yeah, but they're not allowed to. The camera guys aren't allowed to tell us anything. So like that has nothing to do with locating or catching fish. I don't know. It's not necessarily locating or catching, but it would be potentially beneficial information to know from a tournament standpoint. The camera guys don't ever tell us anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, you know, so from that standpoint, I am kind of potentially surprised, I guess, in hindsight, that some of the local boats that were zipping around didn't say anything. But if they're out there, they're probably not watching live.
Yeah, Sean's
So,
saying that's about safety and getting back on time.
yeah, I don't know. That's a good question moving forward. I mean, it never dawned on me to ask, whether there was I'm checking the app, watching barge traffic consistently, and it had been spot on all week. Now, I know there are lots of crafts that are not on that
app.
barge tracker, but generally those are not big vessels. They're ones that can be in and out rather quick, not necessarily like a giant barge that needs to lock through multiple times.
So answer me this then, Matt. Until you went through that, lifted that trophy, won the event, did you know how much it meant to your inner circle, to your close friends, to your family, to your wife, to your kids, to your parents? Did you know that, or was there a realization of, holy cow, there's a lot of people that I brought along on this journey, and I didn't realize how much invested they had in it until this moment?
Yes and no. I mean, when I mentioned getting, emotional coming when I was idling from the check-in boat, the 10-minute idle to get to the ramp, it was very much like, for mainly my wife, Sarah, and I, because she's put up with so much BS on my end. I mean, to fish full time and to raise kids, it is extremely selfish of me to do this, and I could not do it without her.
Yeah, but you're a better dad because of it, because you enjoy your life. You have a quality of life. You get to spend a lot. I mean, that's a give and take. I understand.
It depends how you look at it, because I feel guilty because I miss events that I want to be at, right? So like there's it just was one of those things where I knew as soon as I saw Sarah, I would be emotional, and that's what happened. But after the event, like to see, other family members and other friends who drove hours to get there. It was very eye-opening. We went and we had a phenomenal dinner with a bunch of family and friends later that night, and just celebrated, just kind of had a full-blown release type moment. And that's where, there was a lot of everyone has put up with this and helped me get to where I'm at, whether it's my parents or Sarah's parents who watch the kids at some point, whether it's just a little bit of everything. So to see the outpouring of people that have just sent me messages and texts and phone calls, and I mean, it's been overwhelming. Like it almost to the point where, I've had conversations with people that are like, oh, you gotta, this is a move to not engage in big conversations. And this is a way to respond in bulk to these people, because it is extremely time consuming. It's fantastic to have to respond to everybody and to talk to people you haven't talked to in a long time. But it was overwhelming, to be honest with you, the amount of people that reached out to me. So it's been fantastic.
Nate Wilson would like to let everyone know that he is tracking the Sheila K, and it's down in St. Louis right now, pushing south, which is
get her out of
all
here,
anglers.
See, why did she go down to pool 8 and then lock back to pool 7 and then head back to St. Louis? Gosh,
what are your thoughts on Lay Lake in mid-March? Because one of the things that you did get with the win was an invite to Red Crest, and along with that, an invite to the Thunderbolt Ball. So hopefully you have a good tailor. But Lay Lake, March 13th through 17th, potential for $300,000 and some more hardware.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that event. I've never fished Lay Lake. It's excuse me, that time of year I think should be a pretty good tournament. It should be I would imagine smallmouth, spotted bass and largemouth will play. It should be pre-spawn for the most part, a lot of shallow fish. I think you're going to be able to catch them a lot of different ways. I'm excited to fish that lake. I've never fished it before, but I've always thought it would be one that's set up pretty good for me. And then to be able to have an event that makes you feel special again with, big dinners and just different things going on. It's fun to have the family down for that. And I'm very much looking forward to that, because the last, not to have a Forest Wood Cup or title championship is definitely a bummer when it comes to fishing all season and having good events. I mean, that's one of the things, going back to the payouts, that is something that I heard echoed amongst a lot of the anglers at the La Crosse event was, how we've had good years, but there's no championship. And, when you look at somebody who finished 14th in points, and I don't know who finished 14th or what they won, but there are people in the top 20 that won like $15,000. And it's like they lost money. They finished in the top 20. So they had a killer year. And the championship is generally what used to kind of get you to the break even or above mark. So it's pretty disappointing for a lot of the anglers.
Jacopo Jacopo, he finished 14th. He made $27,000.
Yeah, didn't even break his break even on entry fees. It's not good.
How is that even possible? Jason Vance finished 11th and won 28. Oh, because they gutted the payout on it.
Yeah, so that would be that's 3 top 50 finishes. They had probably 2 top 30s and a top 50.
Me speaking, this is not you, this is me speaking. I think that you had a year or two to get out of there and get up to the BPT. I mean, everything seems to rapidly be changing based on how it's gone from what it was in 19 to what it is in 2023. And I'm not saying that wasn't not necessary changes, and there are still full fields, and there are all still guys that are making a great living when you throw in sponsorship wise and stuff. Yeah. But it went from the FLW Tour to the Pro Circuit and now to the Invitationals. Like, you got out of there perfectly.
Yeah, I really don't feel. I've always said the sport of fishing's all about longevity. The longer you can stay in the business, the better off you should be, because it gives you more time to build your brand. But I don't feel that way right now with our AAA circuits. I really, if you can continue to compete at them and break even, you're doing something great. But I mean, really, to the point where if you actually make money fishing in the invitationals or fishing in the Bass Opens, you got a fantastic shot at getting to the next level anyway. So you just can't build a career around those two circuits. I understand it's a means to an end, but it's, in my opinion, something needs to change with both of them. I've heard, and again, I haven't really heard much in terms of rumors this year, but I will say there was discussion at the registration meeting for La Crosse that the invitationals were going to be ramped up pretty good next year. That's stuff we hear every year, but there was definitely discussion about that.
The thing that I found was interesting too is, like, you don't have, like, have you still gotten like a call from anybody at BPT, an official invite, a piece of paper, nothing? Or is it just like, hey, you made the BPT and you're just kind of waiting around right now because there's no schedule out, they just finished their season, it's just like, you made it, but there's nothing you could be like, hey, there's still, like, I've been in the sport long enough, right, to know that until I get something in formal writing, that it may not actually happen. I feel very confident that I'll. No, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant
no, but it is. Yeah, there hasn't been anything with respect to my BPT qualification. I have a big ticket that says I made Red Crest, but I don't have a ticket that says I made the BPT. But yeah, the way the sport continues to change and organization structure changes, what feels like on a yearly basis, it's kind of like, I don't even really know what I'm getting into. Like, just because the BPT did their stuff this year in a certain format doesn't mean next year's not going to be different.
And I've heard there's changes coming down that pipeline. Not massive changes, just more format tweaks and changes and how the days work and things. I think that's been a plus the way they've worked at it this year with the combined weight for the final 2 rounds and the combined weight for the first 2 rounds. Now, there's a deal floating out there saying, oh, well, KVD would have beat Matt Becker if it had just been 4 days cumulative weight. Guys, that you can't say that at all, because you fish completely differently on the first 2 qualifying days, knowing that the weight's 0 to the final rounds. Like, that's a moot point, in my opinion. Like, you cannot just say, here's what the 4-day weight would have been, because you fish completely differently on days 1 and 2, knowing the weight zeros. Becker might have had 5 pounds more. Van Dam might have had 5 pounds more. Other guys, you know what I mean? You can't.
Yeah, you can't. I totally get what you're saying. And there's always been discussion about that. You know, in the years, FLW tour events used to reset and go back to 0. Strategy changes so much based on the rules of the game for that tournament, right? So yeah, I don't know that it's fair to either of those anglers. I mean, I think in reality, you look at it and say, listen, Matt Becker had a phenomenal tournament. He had a phenomenal year, outstanding angler. And you look at Kevin Van Dam and say, it would have been awesome if he had won his last tournament of his career. But at the same time, it's not taking anything away from Kevin Van Dam, who, in my opinion, is the greatest tournament angler of all time.
Well, definitely. I want to dive into Kevin Van Dam next. I do want to mention tomorrow on BTL, a little bit of a schedule change. We're going to push back the Master Cup fishing and Jeff Queen a couple weeks from now, working on some logistics. I did get a hold of Matt Becker. Didn't think I'd be able to. Guy just won a tournament. Guy just won Angler of the Year. I mean, I didn't think I'd be able to get him on this week. I thought it'd be like a week and a half, because I know he's going down to Thousand Islands for that Toyota series. He's a jump on the show tomorrow. So I got Matt Becker on tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Central Time, to talk about the best week of his life. KVD. I mean, dude, we're all anglers. You are a student of the game. You appreciate longevity. You appreciate doing things the right way. Heck, when I saw you at ICAST, you were wearing you were wearing KVD slacks.
What? Yeah, you gave me a bunch of you were ripping into me for wearing.
But you
nice
then you told me they were Lululemons. I wasn't wearing sandals. I was wearing shoes, and I was wearing khaki shorts.
Sandals and
shorts. I wasn't. I was not wearing sandals. You're a rookie if you go to ICAST in sandals. You got to have comfortable, supportive shoes, and they were iron shorts. And you were wearing Lululemons. You have no room to talk. But
they're comfy. They're stretch. I showed you how low I could get in those. They have a lot of stretch in them.
You can. Yeah. You are very agile. Your thoughts on the KVD retirement as an angler who's been doing this a long time?
Oh man, he's won. I have fished against him a couple of times over the years. I really have never gotten to know Kevin, which is a little bit of a disappointment, because at this point I feel like I know most of the guys. But for me, as a young angler who, at the time grew up in Chicago, but we had a little weekend house in northern Indiana, in a little town called Plymouth, Indiana. So for me, knowing he was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which was not far across the border from where that weekend house was, I don't know. I just really clung to him as a young angler. This was even before he was like Kevin Van Dam. I mean, this was really earlier in his career. He was still doing great, but it was not like the domination that he necessarily had. But I just really clung to him, and I really liked his fishing style. I modeled a lot of what I did off of what the little bit I saw on TV of what he was doing, and I'd read every article and that he would put out with, and it just was he was a big thing for me. So to see him retire is a little bit sad, but at the same time, I'm really happy for him, because I feel like he's getting out at a time where he's got a lot of good things left to do in his life. Meaning, I think he'll be extremely involved in the fishing industry. I don't think he's going to go anywhere, but I think as competitive as I believe him to be, I also feel like there's just probably a good relief in terms of having that aspect of his career over, and he can go work on other things that are more enjoyable. I mean, I think he still, as we just saw, can compete at the highest level, but I I have to imagine for somebody like him who's done it that long, that the tournaments just take a toll on you after so much time. So to remove that from his life, I would like to think that's something he's ready to do, and he's ready to take on some new endeavors that probably are still going to be in the fishing industry. I hope he's not. I hope he's not just going to kind of fade off into the distance. I think
he keeps saying that he's going to be around.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think the sport needs Kevin Van Dam. I don't think it has to be in a tournament format, though.
Here's what I think happens, Matt. I think he takes a year. He hangs out with Johnny Morris. He hangs out at home. He catches smallmouth bass out of his pond. He doesn't really dive back into it, but I think we see him at some point next year on Bass Live, whether it's for an event that he's very familiar with, whether he's at the Classic guest hosting one. We saw him very active at the Classic. I think we also see him on MLF Live, on the BPT for something that he's familiar with on that. I think there's rumors of him that'll be making a comeback, but I foresee possibly, and this is just speculation, 100% speculation, a Bass Pro Shops title sponsored, and Jeffrey's talked about this for a decade, Legends Tour. It's a lot of legends that are sponsored by Bass Pro Shops too.
You'd make Randy Blockett a happy fan.
And three to four tournaments a year, exhibition, but still keep the competitive juices flowing. I could also, I don't know, is it winning you're in on Red Crest? Yeah, I think it is. Or maybe you have to be competing or something, because I could also see him winning Red Crest this year and then getting back in it in 2025 or 2024.
So when you say make a return after taking a year off, are you saying a return with MLF or Bass?
No, I think he's going to spearhead a Legends Tour.
Okay. I would love, if your prediction is right in that he goes back and does some stuff with Bass.
Like if I was a betting man, that's what I would say.
That he goes and does some commentary.
Just what
stuff?
I explained happens.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see him potentially be the individual that has enough pull, enough power within the industry to potentially bring some unity between Bassmaster and Major League Fishing. Like if there's anybody if there's anybody out there right now that has the pull, meaning you look at his Bassmaster's results, like off the charts, you look at his MLF results and his relationship there. Like I think he potentially could spearhead something that I'm not saying bring together as one unit, one tournament circuit. I'm saying more along the lines of just get us into a place where we don't have like the battle going on between circuits to help bring us all to a higher place.
That's interesting. So he would be like the dove with the olive branch. He would flutter down in between the two organizations and say, you talk to this guy in this room.
There right now, I don't personally believe that all of the fighting amongst organizations is doing the sport good. We're not getting to better places. And I as an angler, at least, the sport is not getting better for anglers. Our payouts continue to go down. Our entry fees continue to go up. I would love to see there be some way to get us to work together and to bring the sport to higher places.
All right. So you heard my option one. That was my option one. And I think option one includes what you just talked about. Little olive branch. He's the olive branch between MLF and Bass. Option two is he pulls a Tom Brady.
I mean, somebody who's so competitive, like
I'm
Kevin,
just saying it's an option. I'm throwing out scenarios.
I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, I think those competitive juices will be running for a long time, and it may not necessarily be he jumps in and fishes a full circuit, because as far as I know, he could fish probably either
Anything he wants.
Bassmaster. Yeah, exactly. So he could jump in and do whatever. So I don't think we're done seeing him compete. I don't know that we'll see him fish like full years unless you do have a special Legends type circuit that maybe is just, you know, a really small field of select people that's more of a we're going to promote the sport type thing versus it be like true 200 old, you know, guys fishing that are out there. But he will fish more tournaments.
Yeah.
He will. There's not a doubt that he will do that. I just don't know that he'll do it as a full season type thing.
So that's option number 2. He pulls a Tom Brady. He's right back on the BPT next year. Or I guess he pulls a Tim Horton because Tim Horton did the same thing. But I like the Tom Brady because he's the Tom Brady bass fishing. Option 3, he takes a year off. He lays low. Then he's on the Elite Series. Takes the Legends exemption. Goes back to the Elite Series. Tries to get 2 more Angler of the Years to tie Roland with 9 and get 1 more Classic to beat Rick with 5. Ideally, it takes him 3 years. He wins 3 Anglers of the Year. He wins his 5th Classic and rides off into the sunset with every major record. That's option number 3.
Is he part owner of MLF? He is he not?
I believe he is one of the owners of MLF.
And is there
one of the Angler owners?
Does that potentially have any issue with fishing Bassmaster?
Well, Iconelli was part owner and he's out. So I think
he is part. Oh, I didn't know he was.
Oh,
he's no longer
something.
part owner.
I don't know. There is a way. All I know is at one point I believe he was part owner. This is me talking.
Yeah.
I don't know for a fact that this was true, but I believe. Let me just say this without any names. I believe that there have been people who have been part owners of MLF in the past who are now fishing on the Bassmaster Elite Series.
Sure.
How's that? So it's not a, you know,
it's not
like a blood oath contract, although I'm sure they'd like it to be.
I don't see Kevin just saying I'm just fishing the Elite Series now. Like I don't see that happening.
You don't see him doing a Michael Jordan 23 to 45. I'm back.
I guess my question, I mean, do you think it would, in order for him to do that, that would be more about just breaking the records. And I see Kevin being, and again, I don't know him. I feel kind of weird talking about him just from like this perspective because I don't, but from looking from the outside in,
perfect.
He strikes me as being such a competitive individual that the records that the records are not necessarily what's driving him. And if the records aren't what's driving him and it's the competition, which is what I view it being more of, then why would he be leaving MLF right now? Because he's got the competition to.
So here's the one thing no one said that know him, that doesn't know him or anything. No one's been like, yeah, KVD looks tired and he looks done. No one's ever said that. No one's ever been like, you know what? I think he's going to stay ratired and work on this thing. There's not a single person that I've talked to that think that KVD doesn't have something up his sleeve.
Dude, I was watching him fish on that last day in the pouring rain. I mean, he was 5 pounds behind with I'm talking the last 10, 15 minutes, and he was fishing as energetically as anybody else I've ever seen. I mean, there was still the belief in his head that he could win that tournament. Whereas, when they pan the camera around, it's like Kevin's he has still got that fire compared to, a handful of other guys. I'm like, yeah, I can, they're out of it. They had a top 10 finish. They're soaking wet. It's like, there's lightning on the water. Let's get out of here. And he's out there still thinking he's going to win it. I just don't necessarily see him feeling like he needs to jump ship and go to Bassmaster just to go after those few more accolades.
I know he can't sit there because I've been at events and places with him and everyone's just like chilling. And Kevin's like, it's raining or something where we're, and he's like, all right, what are we doing? Let's go do something. Let's go do that. You want to go here? You want to go there? Let's go do this. I mean, he can't sit and do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll fish he will fish tournaments in the future. I just don't know that it's going to be a full season. I really don't know. I mean, it'll be really interesting.
Like, you want to get betting involved? It's the Bally's bet, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Angler of the Year, something like that. Here's your bet right here. This is a hell of a bet. You put money on, does KVD ever fish the MLF Pro BPT again? Does KVD ever fish the Elite Series again? Does KVD ever fish in a Red Crest? Does KVD ever fish in a Bassmaster Classic? Like, dude, there's your bets right there.
I think we're going to see betting next year. Do you think we're going to have gambling next year? Lines?
You want to get into this real quick? What's your time frame?
I got
Let's take our final break, and when we come back, I have a lot of thoughts on that.
I would love to get into that.
Let's get into that. All right, BTL, Matt, Stefan, marathon show on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ramtail craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
All right, welcome back. BTL on a Tuesday, talking all things. We did like a full hour, like a little different perspective, look behind the scenes of Matt Stefan's invitational win out of La Crosse. Now we're purely speculative and hypothesized statements about the future of the greatest to ever do it, Kevin Van Dam. Do you agree that he is the greatest to ever do it? It obviously has to come down between him and Klon. I think I don't think there's anyone else in that discussion. Like when it's all said and done, like if fishing just stopped right now, there's no one else in that conversation, is there?
For me, Kevin Van Dam is by far the greatest angler to ever fish tournaments. Like I think his domination has been during a period where the sport really grew and you saw a lot more competitiveness across the board, and just to see the way he did it, and still is doing it, is just been an amazing thing.
It's interesting. I've seen some hypothesization on the message board or on the feedback, and I've talked to some people, and they think that it might have a little bit to do with the rise in forward-facing sonar, and now he's not like actually utilizing that, so he just doesn't enjoy it as much. So he's getting out. Like I said, this is all. I mean, if Kevin wants to call in and weigh in on it, he's more than welcome to. But I'll get him on, and I'll get him on eventually. You have to schedule Kevin. You can't just call him. He's one of the few guys that needs a little advance. But I would counter that by saying I don't think that has anything to do with it, because if you look at his most dominant years on the Elite Series from like 2007 to 2012 is the rise of side imaging. And Kevin was incredibly good on the TVA fisheries and on all these fisheries that he power fished offshore. Whether it be Smith Mountain with a shaky head, Kentucky Lake, Gunnersville, any of those, Wheeler, that he was at the forefront of that side imaging technology and actually utilized it and got ahead of the curve on side imaging, just like some of these guys are with the forward-facing sonar over the last couple of years. So, I don't think it has anything to do with technology and Kevin. Kevin's very adept at technology and good at using it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, to the point where I don't know that he would, even if that were the case, I don't know that he would come out and say it was strictly because of forward-facing sonar. There is no doubt that forward-facing sonar is changing the face of the game, and if you're not willing to accept it, there is definitely potential of being left behind. I mean, it's probably one of my bigger weaknesses. I mean, I definitely use it, but I probably don't use it enough, based on seeing what some of the results are. But I don't think Kevin will come on here and say that the technology is the death of the game, at least for him. I think he may come on and say that technology is getting to the point where it is extremely beneficial, or it is, to the point where it can really change the game, and maybe things need to happen in terms of where that goes in the future. But I don't know that that forward facing it is why he's leaving the sport.
I'm gonna make one more statement on it, and then we'll move on to betting and fishing and my thoughts on that. There's a part of me that will always think we've had a lot of BS go down over the last 3 years in the sport. A lot of behind the scenes BS, a lot of public stuff. There's just been a lot of stuff on both tours. A lot of stuff on the BPT too. I think part of it, KVD just got sick of the crap.
Yeah.
I think there's a part of me that thinks he's just like, dude, I've been here. I've done it. I'm traveling. I raised my family. I've got the funds. I've got the people with the funds. I can do some other things that really interest me, and I don't have to put up with this petty crap that's going on at these tournaments.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think there's a lot of people that are pretty fed up with the sport. And when you're somebody in Kevin's position, where he's been in the game for as long as he has, he's established himself as potentially the greatest, the greatest of all time. He has his choice to do whatever he wants to do right now, and he can do it without having to deal with some of the gossip and the BS that's been happening behind the scenes. So I could definitely see that being something where he's like, listen, I want to take a break. I'm not disappearing from the sport, but I want to take a break. I want to travel. I want to enjoy the money I've made. Like, isn't that what we're supposed to do, is work hard and then enjoy life? I mean, if you can enjoy life while working hard, that's even more power to you. But he does not need to be fishing tournaments to make a living.
Another announcement, show on Monday, really cool kind of behind the scenes show that we're going to do. We're going to have Mark Copley and Tom Brubaker from Strike King, Lou's Rather Outdoors on. Mark has worked with KVD and Strike King for a long time. Tom knows him well, so is he. And then we're also going to have Brandon from the Kings of Bass, the cameraman who followed KVD on his last regular season tournament. up in Michigan. All three of those guys are going to come on. We're going to kind of have a little behind the scenes on what it was like following Kevin. I talked yesterday. It was the first time I'd ever seen him get emotional like that. So he's going to come on, talk about what it was like for those 8 days that he followed him behind the scenes, and then the impact that Kevin had on the industry, selling baits with the initials on it for Strike King and development in Strike King, and more recently with Lose is what Tom's going to talk about. So that'll be a cool show next Monday. Let's talk betting. What are your thoughts on it? Why don't we have Caesar Sportsbook for the Bassmaster Classic? Why can't you walk it? I mean, dude, you can like bet on a hot dog eating competition. You can bet on sports you've never even heard of. Why can't you bet on fishing, Matt?
I don't know why we don't have it yet, but I truly believe that if we want to take the sport to the next level, we need to have it, because it brings a lot of new eyeballs to the sport that don't even fish. I mean, there's enough people out there that will bet on whatever. And if you offer it, they'll bet on it. They'll watch it. It'll increase the eyeballs on the TV shows. It'll make an impact. As to why we don't have it yet, I don't know. I mean, like you said, you can bet on pretty much anything. Who's going to win a bags tournament or cornhole or whatever it is that people call it. I mean, you can bet on almost anything. So I'm surprised we don't have it yet. But I whether you believe gambling is a good thing or a bad thing, I think it's hard to argue that it would bring a lot of new eyeballs to our sport and give some more credibility to it.
All right, you can bet on reindeer racing in Norway, Finland, and Russia. You can bet on Quidditch. You can bet on rock, paper, scissors, and Rochambeau with their world championships in Europe and Canada and the U.S. You can bet on cow chip tossing in Beaver, Oklahoma.
So why? Let me ask you this, Matt. How does that make the sport of bass fishing?
Oh, it says, well, you may not be able to find the odds at your local sports book. You can bet on it locally. That doesn't count. So you can bet on curling, harness racing. You can bet on cornhole. And I kid you not, for this past year, for the first time in history, you could bet on the Special Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just feel like it doesn't say much for our sport. Like is everyone who's watching this?
I don't think it doesn't say anything. I
ourselves,
disagree.
We are, let me just say this. We are diehard fans of this sport. The one thing I've noticed from my YouTube channel, though, is the sport of bass fishing, tournament bass fishing, is a very small niche group of people. It's not this huge worldwide type deal thing. And from that standpoint, you're talking about a very small audience, which is probably why we don't have any professional gambling on it. But the way I look at it is we're not even at a level to the point where they're thinking about making odds for us when you can go bet on the cornhole championships. Like, to me, that doesn't say much for our sport. I really do feel like, though, if we could get to a point where we have odds, that would just solidify us more as a professional sport and therefore get us to a new audience. I think it's going to happen. I think we'll see it next year. I think
you can. I think there are too many uncontrollable variables for their. Okay, I think you could.
Tell me how there's uncontrollable variables.
I need to gather my thoughts here, Matt, because I'm very passionate about this. I've thought about this and talked in depth about this.
So you think about it for a second. I'm going to say one more thing. If we compare fishing to golf, there's not that many differences from a gambling world. In golf, what they're looking at is how guys have performed on courses before. What's the weather conditions going to be? Very similar type things to bass fishing. Now, granted, they're dealing with no living creature, but I don't see how that really changes things up. I mean, I'll tell you this. If you sit down and play fantasy fishing, the guys that put in their time to pick teams for fantasy fishing are doing very well week to week, because they're doing the same thing you do with a golfer, where you're looking to see who's the best golfer on that course, on those conditions. Does this guy have home course advantage, blah, blah, blah. I don't see how it's any different.
you would have to have a certain structure of bets that you could make because of how rare winning is.
Well, that's what
dude, you're a top ranked angler on your circuit. You just won for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't have it would be ridiculous to bet. Okay, Jeffries does it all on that, but it would be ridiculous to put someone at 2-1 or 3-1 or 4-1, because the actuality of them winning and the percentage of them winning is 1 in 20. But then if you do 1 in 20 and you hit, your payout is so insane because you see what I'm saying? Your odds are so great.
If we compare it to golf again, most of the odds are not 1 in 2, 1 in 5. And the ones that are heavy favorites like that don't generally get the good gambling money because it's not the smart bet. Meaning, I don't know golf that well. I've got a brother that is a phenomenal golfer, golfed in college. I've got a bunch of buddies that are big into golf, and they are really good at picking the guys that have 1 in 30 odds or 1 in 60 odds at winning the tournament. Now, I'm not saying they're picking the winner every time,
Okay,
but they're
so you got Scotty Scheffler that's plus 650, John Rahm plus 900, McIlroy plus 900, Cantlay plus 1400, Schauffele plus 1800.
And then there's field bets where if there isn't a line made on an individual person, you can bet the remaining field. It's not 2-1 favorites. It's generally a lot lower than that, or better.
So I'm
payout.
going all the way down here. Here's Taylor Montgomery. He is plus 30,000.
That's a good return. Worth putting $1 down, maybe.
Yeah, or 100. And then it has it for all the others. I guess if you look at it like that, I just feel like I feel like in golf, Scotty Scheffler, he is going to probably be in the mix on this. If you bet $10, you win 75 if he wins the event, right? But I think it's way more. So if you bet $10 on Taylor Montgomery, he wins $28,070.
Yeah, the other common bet though within golf are matchup bets. So you're betting it's two guys, who's going to win between the two guys.
Yeah, I guess you could do that. But do you not also feel like in some matter or form, especially if you start getting into parlays at different bets and who wins and all that, we got guys stuffing fillets and walleye again for the second time. Do you not think that it's the easiest sport to rig? That's the other thing. And we've already talked about how desperate guys get out there. Heck, 8% of your tour that you were just on broke even, Matt. If you think you got a whale in Vegas who now you can bet on fishing is going to go in, dude, do you not think there's going to be some tomfoolery?
I have a couple of comments on that. I think you have that in every sport where you have potential gambling. You can go through Netflix and find lots of documentaries about referees and, sports players that were potentially rigging events. So I think that could happen on anything, not just fishing. I don't know that it's even easier to do with fishing if you're talking about a living creature that you have to go out and catch. It could potentially be harder. I can't say I've spent a lot of time on trying to figure out how that would come into play. It does make me wonder, though, from a rules standpoint, do the organizations need to uphold the rules more to give the gambling books enough confidence that there won't be some shenanigans from that standpoint? Because I think it would be very easy to look at some of the rule infractions and the rule enforcements by both major organizations and say that they're maybe not upholding them in the manner they should be. which would not give the odds makers confidence that decisions are being made based on the rules of the sport. Are they being made to justify somebody's pockets?
And how would the odds be made? Like, who would the odds makers do? Would you do it straight on statistics? Would you do it on history? Like, would you do it on location, on history, on that body of water, on the style that it sets up for when you go to a new, like, how do you determine?
I'm sure they'd come up with an algorithm that would take into account all of those factors, and they would probably be pretty good at making odds. I don't know. I'm just saying, I think from a sport, it would help us as a sport. Whether you're a fan of it or not a fan of it, I do think that there's potential.
I mean, dude, if you pick on it, this is what you're talking to. Listen. This is what he said. I'm going to get 15 guys together with boats and place all bets all on one angler. Then fish or go sit on the spots of the guys ahead of him. That's what you're opening up to. You're opening up to some guy who you're in contention to win the tournament, and he's got a bet on the dude that you're battling it out for, and he's on your water ripping through it because he wants to win 10 grand because he put $1,000 on the dude you're battling it out with. You don't have to worry about that in any other sport because it takes place on a closed playing field. This is a public playing field. That's one of the variables that I'm talking about.
Yeah, there could be potential legal matters involved in that, I would think, though. I don't know. I don't know for sure.
You get harassing a sportsman. That's about it.
Well, yeah, but as soon as you're talking about legal bets being made, if you're trying, I'm saying from their standpoint, they're trying to change the bet in their favor. I think there might be potential legal issues.
They're not doing anything illegal, though.
Well,
like in horse racing, you don't see guys jumping onto the track trying to slow down the horse in the lead.
Yeah, I'm
because that's illegal.
Well, it doesn't necessarily stop anyone from doing it. They could potentially do it. I don't know. I don't have the answers to it. I don't know. I think with most of this, you could potentially argue that, you could, with most sports, you could potentially argue somebody is doing something to change the outcome of the game, whether it's in baseball and they're, putting oil on their hat to throw a better curve or whatever it is. I mean, there's always rule infractions that are happening. It really comes down to the enforcement of those rules. And I mean, I don't see why we couldn't have odds made on fishing. I mean,
I'm not opposed to it. I do think it would bring a lot more eyeballs, infuse a lot more money into the sport. And I think you'll hear more about that in the next year or two.
Do you think it's coming or you don't think it's coming?
Some version of it is coming soon.
Yeah.
To a live stream near you. You're selling a bunch of your, what do you want to call them? Hooks, but they're not hooks, but they're not jig heads.
The hat rigs
you have on. Yeah. Hover rigs. You're selling a bunch of your hover rigs, aren't you?
Yeah. We, right now we are the hover rig is the #1 seller for terminal tackle at Tackle Warehouse, and the tush, which is the ultimate swim bait head, is the 4th best terminal tackle at seller at Tackle Warehouse. So it's been going very well. We've got a bunch of new sizes coming out, a bunch of new sizes of both the swim bait head as well as the hover rig coming out. We've got non-weedless versions that will be coming out soon. We're trying to grow a brand in core tackle. I've got boxes of prototypes sitting all over the place, working on different jig designs, working on there's probably 5 or 6 different designs we're looking at.
Has this been like a labor of love, or are you surprised at how easy it's been to go from concept to market? Or I mean,
a little of both. I won't say from the process that's actually been easier is the development of baits, meaning working with the production facility to design, like to take either designs that I've created or designs that I've got in my head and have them recreate it and get to the point of having prototypes in hand, that's actually been easier than I expected and faster than I expected. The process though of, actually getting baits out to market and in the hands of people is definitely been more time consuming and a lot more work, but it's been very satisfying to be able to take a few concepts, push them out there, and have people really enjoy and catch a lot of fish with them.
And that's just you and Johnny.
Yeah, it's Johnny Schultz of Fish the Moment. Myself, we are co-owners, and I mean we have done everything ourselves at this point. It's definitely been time consuming. It honestly, to look back and to see the year that I've had from a fishing standpoint has almost been surprising, just from the standpoint of how much time and effort I've put into core tackle and YouTube content, almost to the point where like the tournaments took a back seat, but yet my results were the best I've ever had. So I don't know if that's a function of me fishing much more relaxed from the standpoint of not being always thinking about the tournaments, just kind of showing up and starting to fish, or if that's more of me just fishing the moment while I've been there. But yeah, it's been a really good process. We are excited to come out with a bunch of new products. It's for me, I've caught a lot of my weigh-in fish on those 2 jig heads this year. So to catch fish on jig heads that I'm making, to catch fish on my MHX custom rods that I build, through Mudhole, like it's a very rewarding thing when you're catching fish on things that you've made.
Yeah. There's very few people that have done that at the highest level.
Yeah, I mean, I know from a rod building standpoint, there's not a whole lot of people that are doing it. And then from a lure making standpoint, there's not that many professional anglers that are doing it. So it's been very, very rewarding.
Did you go, I believe his name is Ron Davis, the creator of the chatterbait, who went patents and aggressively pursuing copy? Like, did you go that route, or what? How are we standing with, like, I mean, you're kind of the only one on the market now, but how long will that last?
Yeah, well, so the hover rig, there are definitely some companies that are rolling out very, very similar products. We have started the process of getting a utility patent as well as the design patent on the hover rig. The attorney that we've got is a very well-known attorney within the fishing world, and feels very confident that that design and that the action and the function of the hover rig is a unique bait. And if we can secure that, that would give us a lot of protection. But we're talking about something that could take years and a lot of money. But again, it kind of goes back to building the core tackle brand and bringing value to the company. We feel like if we can secure those, it gives us more value. I mean, it depending on what we do with it is still unknown if we're able to secure it, but we feel like it's worth it for us to put the money into going after getting it.
Mm-hmm. And you did hire Robert Shapiro?
The glove doesn't fit, or does fit. I don't know. Yeah. We definitely went out and secured, the top 10 attorneys throughout the country, and we will fight this tooth and nails. I don't know, dude. It's one, and the funny thing is, if we're able to secure the utility patent, that's all great and dandy, but it really doesn't have value if this is a fad. If this just comes and goes, it's not really got value. But if it's something where every company out there decides to create a similar bait, well, that's going to establish the hover rig as a
crankbait style
bait, and bring value to it. And at which point the patent will have value. So it's one of those things where it's like, as much as I hate seeing something that, that I feel like somebody is copying our idea, I also am confident we can get the patent, at which point that brings value to the patent. Johnny and I, our approach right now is simply, we just want to keep making baits that we want to make for ourselves that catch fish, and we'll let the business side of things kind of figure themselves out.
Does Johnny ever run out of enthusiasm, whether it's for the deep dive app or tackle or fishing or creating content for Fish the Moment? He's all like, every time I talk to him, he's the most enthusiastic go-getter guy that I ever talked to. Like, is he ever, I mean, you know him way better than I do. Is he ever just like down, or is he always positive, go-getter, next idea, make it better, work harder?
No, he's a very, very enthusiastic, which I love, because in our working relationship, he's more of the big dreamer and I'm more of the realist. So I think we do a really good job at leveling each other out. But his enthusiasm and excitement is definitely something that rubs off on individuals. So he's one of those guys that you want to have around. He's an extremely intelligent individual, a phenomenal fisherman. So I'm very glad to be doing this with him, and I think we make a very good team. So I can't say I've ever really talked to him and he's been like down in the dumpster. I mean, there's been days where either with core tackle or deep dive or something, there's been hiccups and it's like there's disappointment, but you know, he's pretty quick to try to go right into his problem solving mode and figure out ways to try to overcome something.
Well, Matt, we're 2 hours into this deal. If guys, we really didn't get into the actual tournament. There's a lot of videos on your YouTube channel, Matt Stefan Fishing, that goes into the baits, that goes into the tournaments. You talk about a lot of stuff on there. I would encourage anybody who wanted to get the backstory from what happened on the water to go watch those. This was kind of the backstory. I want a big shout out to your wife, Sarah, for jumping on. I do think that there is a market there for, I mean, there's only like 8 tournaments a year for BPT on location chiropractic services. I mean, you get, let's just say you get, let's run the numbers. Let's just say you do, you know, $3,000 a tournament and you get 10 guys to jump in on it. That's $30,000 a tournament, and she's at 8 events. She needs a booth.
Who's going to pay $3,000 per tournament? Figure $40.
You see the type of money that Jordan Lee and Lucas and Wheeler are making? Matt Becker just won $200,000 in 3 days.
I figure $40 an adjustment. If you get 30 guys, that's $1,200 a tournament. But that's per, if you had them per day and it's a 6-day or with practice, say 8-9 days, it could potentially work. I'll keep working on her to come on tour more with me and start giving out the adjustments.
Anything else you want to get in here, Matt?
No, man. Thanks for having me on again.
I think it's the longest show of the year.
Oh, yes.
Longest show of the year. Matt Becker, tomorrow, 2023 Bass Pro Tour Angler of the Year and Saginaw Bay Champion. That was a good one. We're back in studio. And then, of course, on Thursday, day 4 with Frank Scaler. Special announcement there. Todd, the prop guy, is going to come. Oh, you might be interested in this, Matt. Frank has come out. He's worked with, I don't know if I can say it. There's some cool things going on in the prop world with a limited number of ones that may or may not have more blades than normal and work fantastic when trying to climb big water waves. So we're going to have Todd, the prop guy, on, really? And then Frank is going to talk about smallmouth bass in current.
Like me some smallmouth in current.
In current?
Yeah.
In current. A lot of listeners, a lot of watchers on today. Thanks, guys. Thanks for also being patient. I just uploaded 7 BTL on locations from the past 3 weeks on the road. I had to go through, render them, work them. Got a little bit of a log jam. Thought some of them had come out. Got some emails that were like, hey, you going to post any of this stuff? Yes, you have 7 hours of content. Now you got 9 hours with this 2-hour show. So that's all I got, Matt.
Sounds good to me. It sounds like you're a busy dude.
I am a busy dude. And then we're home for the next couple weeks, and then back to back Watts Bar, Lake of the Ozarks, week off, head to Florida, wrap things up for the 2023 season. Then we do it all over again. Thanks, dude. Congrats on the win.
Thanks, buddy.
Tell your wife I said thanks.
Will do.
All right, this has been another edition of BTL. Same place, same time tomorrow with Matt Becker. We're out. Later.